Real TV. I was looking for a conversation that I seen with Malcolm X having with a guy about Martin Luther King. And I was gonna react to that, but I seen this video instead, which is the same conversation I was looking for. But someone did an edit of Martin Luther King, like responding to the things that he was saying. Basically, it looks like a debate, but they wasn't really there together with each other. Salute to this guy. I'll put his name in the description.
The white man pays Reverend Martin Luther King, subsidizes Reverend Martin Luther King, so that Reverend Martin Luther King can continue to teach the Negroes to be defenseless. That's what you mean by nonviolent. Be defenseless. Be defenseless in the face of one of the most cruel beasts that has ever taken the people into captivity.
Now, I want to point this out. This issue is deep because you got two people who want the same thing but disagree on the methods.
It's the American white man, and they have proved it throughout the country by the police dogs and the police clubs. 100 years ago, they used to put on a white sheet and use a bloodhound against Negroes. Today, they have taken off the white sheet and put on police uniforms. They've traded in the bloodhounds for police dogs, and they're still doing the same thing. And
now they got guns, Malcolm.
just as Uncle Tom, back during slavery, used to keep the Negroes from resisting the Bloodhound or resisting the Ku Klux Klan by teaching them to love their enemy or pray for those who use them despitefully. Today, Martin Luther King is just a 20th century or modern Uncle Tom or a religious Uncle Tom who is doing the same thing today to keep Negroes defenseless in the face of attack that Uncle Tom did on the plantation to keep those Negroes defenseless in the face of the attack of the Klan.
Now, respectfully, before Mr. King goes, this is why a lot of people have a problem with certain things with the civil rights movement and people who believed in nonviolence and things of that nature. They feel like um, their methods did a lot of harm in terms of you hear people talking about how things were better off in terms of economy for black people. We had our own everything, but then when we integrated, it got worse. But that's what I'm saying. It was people. Well, I can't even say it was people like Malcolm around because they got rid of him, but it was people like Malcolm around that understood the other side of the down uh uh falls of this, and they were there too. So together we were supposed to counteract it all, but they got rid of both of these guys.
Well, I don't think of love as, in this context, as emotional bosh. I don't think of it as a weak force. But I think of love as something strong and that organizes itself into powerful direct action. This is what I tried to teach in the struggle in the South, that we are not engaged in a struggle that means we sit down and do nothing. That there's a great deal of difference between non-resistance to evil and non-violent resistance. Non-resistance leaves you in a state of stagnant passivity and deadened complacency, wherein non-violent resistance means that you do resist in a very strong and determined manner. And I think some of the criticisms of nonviolence, or some of the critics, fail to realize that we are talking about something very strong, and they confuse non-resistance with nonviolence.
The reason why is because they didn't believe in nonviolence. And throughout history, you'll know that a lot of being radical got a lot of done in a lot of different governments. The radical movements push the needle.
Is to give Negroes a chance to sit in a segregated restaurant beside the same white man who had brutalized them for 400 years. The goal of Dr. Martin Luther King is to get Negroes to forgive the people who have brutalized them for 400 years by lulling them to sleep and making them forgetting what those whites have done to them. But the masses of black people in America today don't go for what Martin Luther King is putting down. As you said in one of your articles, it's psychologically insecure, or something of that sort. I forget how you put it. But you didn't endorse what Martin Luther King was doing yourself. I do not...
This was like 1961, something like that, 61, 62. and this was two black men saying they didn't agree with Martin Luther King. But see, this is what you got to understand. This was before the bill had been passed. You know what I'm saying? So they was basically saying they don't even think that was gonna happen. You know what I'm saying? You can predict uh, the underhanded ways of the oppressor and how they'll use what you're trying to do against you, but you can't predict it not even happening. Like there's talking like it wouldn't even happen at all. Like his methods worked. You know what I'm saying?
Reject his goals of full integration and full equality rights for American citizens. Do you reject these
If you don't
goals?
think that he's walking on the right road, I'm quite sure you don't agree that he'll get to the right place. And if you
You see what I'm saying? They're wrong. Both of these two was wrong about the end result.
would classify his method as psychologically unrealistic, I think that if a man's method is psychologically unrealistic, which means the road or the means or the method that he's using, I think as a psychologist, you would be very doubtful
I don't think
that he
that's
would reach the
true.
right.
If anyone
And they're wrong. They were wrong. It's easy to say in a moment when you're talking about something that has not happened in the most oppressed time. Like they were in the middle of the fight and he's saying, yo, I have a dream. And they like, yo, this is irresponsible. But it happened though. It cost both of them their life though. So at the end of the day, he never seen it happen, but it happened.
has ever lived with a nonviolent movement in the South, from Montgomery on through the Freedom Rides and through the sit-in movement and the recent Birmingham movement, and see the reactions of many of the extremists and reactionaries in the white community, he wouldn't say that this movement makes, or this philosophy makes him comfortable. I think it arouses a sense of shame within him often, in many instances. I think it does something to touch the conscience and establish a sense of guilt. Now, so often people respond to guilt by engaging more in the guilt-evoking act in an attempt to drown the sense of guilt. But this approach certainly doesn't make the white man feel comfortable. I think it does the other thing.
And the reason why is because it's integration. So no, it doesn't make them feel comfortable because they're giving something up. Now, Malcolm was speaking to the higher government and how it's going to be used against you, or just you even wanting to integrate with people. But your mission was even wanting to have the opportunity to do it. So, of course, it makes them uncomfortable because they've been sitting, well, they were sitting in their white only restaurants by themselves. And your mission was to walk into the restaurant.
And it disturbs this sense of contentment.
Nothing will they ever do. They will always talk it, but they won't practice it. And with the Supreme Court, if the NAACP can tell me that they want a desegregation decision for me 10 years ago, but yet the schools haven't been desegregated, as I say, this is a victory with no victory. It's a victory that you can talk about, but it's a victory you can't show me. So if you represent the
And you know what's funny? We have a lot of those now. Statues and little stupid stuff that means nothing.
NAACP, and you were telling me about this great victory you won for me. When I look at you, I have to conclude that either you have been duped yourself or else you were trying to dupe me. And in most instances where the civil rights struggle is involved, there is no civil rights leader can point to me one concrete gain, practical gain that black people have made in the civil rights field in this country, not only during the past 10 years, but during the past 100 years.
What's funny and what's not funny, it's ironic. Umar Johnson said that same thing on a panel. This would have been, what, 50 years later? 60 years later. 60 years later. Wow.
I think there's any real organization to the riots. I think they grow out of the conditions that I've mentioned all along. And as long as these intolerable conditions are there, as long as the Negro finds himself living every day in a major depression, then every city will sit on a powder keg and can explode over the slightest incident. I feel that killing is a very tragic way to deal with any social problem. There is no violent solution to the problem that the Negro confronts in this country, and this is why I have constantly said that riots are socially destructive and
Now the gangs need to hear that.
self-defeating. After all, the Negro ends up on the losing end. We can't win a violent revolution. Most of the persons killed in riots are Negroes themselves. The persons who end up not being able to get milk for their children are Negroes because things where they have to live are destroyed. So there's no practical or moral answer in the realm of violence to the Negro's problem. But I do understand the sociological, the psychological, and the economic reasons.
The problem can be solved. First, the white
He's saying, like, you can go bust somebody's head, but what are you going to get out of it?
man and the black man have to be able to sit down at the same table. The white man has to feel free to speak his mind without hurting the feelings of that Negro. And the so-called Negro has to feel free to speak his mind without hurting the feelings of the white man.
Well, welcome to 2023, Malcolm. You can't say anything without hurting people's feelings now.
Then they can bring the issues that are under the rug out on top of the table and take an intelligent approach to get the problem solved. That's the only way that they'll ever do it. We need an action program while we are Muslims, or while we are Christians, or while we are whatever we are. We still need an action program that will eliminate these evils that are in our community. And this is what we're trying to do with the Muslim Mosque Incorporated.
Do you consider yourself militant?
I consider myself Malcolm.
Well, I think we have to agree that this appears to be the result of
They've been trying to trick people up with stupid wordplay questions for years.
an internal conflict within the black nationalist movement. So I think the first thing that needs to be done is for a conference of goodwill to take place between black nationalist leaders.
They had one too. That actually happened. I don't know when this was, but they actually had one of those. This was before Malcolm passed. Yeah, that happened.
That's why I suggested a few days ago that the followers of the late Malcolm X and the followers of Elijah Muhammad should sit down at the peace table together, so to speak, and discuss this problem and try to reach some understanding. I don't think, and I'm sure, that nothing can be accomplished by violence. It only leads to new and more complex social problems. I think it is unfortunate for the black nationalist movement. I think it is unfortunate for the health of our nation.
And that's true. But see, the thing is, they weren't able to get there together. They cut the heads off a lot of different movements, and like Malcolm died because of internal beef within his organization. So he couldn't even iron out nothing with you because he had to iron out problems with them. So it's like he had to iron out problems within his organization just to be able to get to iron out a problem with you. And y'all are trying to iron out y'all problems just to iron out the bigger problem. So Malcolm was dealing with three different beasts. You know what I'm saying?
I may not get there with you,
He didn't.
but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land.